So whenever I talk to people about no longer drilling, they all say, well, what about the economic impact? How are you going to really realistically transition off of fossil fuels? And I'm a big believer that not only is it possible, but that it's necessary. That this isn't something that we throw up our hands in the air, but that we must listen to as if it's a mandate from science and a mandate from the earth itself.
Well, Elliot, it's not only necessary, it's happening. It's got the petroleum companies running scared, and that's why they're pushing for more plastic. Electrification happened much faster than they thought. Cars are becoming electrified. We're having alternatives to fossil fuels for transportation. This is scaring the daylights out of the petrochemical companies. It's making drilling for more seem less and less rational, and it's driving them to produce more plastic in response to the fact that they won't be selling their petroleum for transportation. So we've got two things happening at the same time. One, petroleum becoming obsolete, and at the same time plastic becoming the new way for petroleum companies to pollute the planet. And I think these universes need to unite in this political revolution. The zero waste movement, which looks at all this plastic as a commodity that needs to be recovered and reused, and the climate change movement, which looks at all the carbon pollution as something that has to be reined in. We've got to rein in both plastic production and carbon pollution at the same time, and then we'll have enough political force, enough critical mass to truly have that political revolution that we both want.
Absolutely. And I'm glad that you're making the connection between carbon in the atmosphere and plastics in the ocean and in our Earth.
It's just a solid phase of petroleum. Absolutely. It's carbon. It's a carbon chain. Carbon is the backbone of all plastic polymers. And plastics in the ocean is more dangerous than crude oil in the ocean because it lasts longer and does more harm over time. So on a scale of 1 to 10, many scientists in my field, plastic pollution, will rate a petroleum spill as a 3 and a plastic spill as a 9. So that tsunami in Japan not only released radiation, it released a lot of plastic. If we'd have treated that as if it was a petroleum spill, we'd have had booms around Japan. If that was much petroleum spilled in a liquid form, we've got responses. Still, the world does not have a response for the spills of the solid form of that same material, plastic.
Wow, you know, I've never really thought of that, because you're right, if it's an oil spill, we're out there worrying about the turtles and the fish, but when it's plastic, which is oil, we just sort of think that, well, that's an issue we're going to get to when we have time for it.
Yeah, it's solid. Well, some magical formula will clean it up. Some Dutch fairy tale like the ocean cleanup, we're going to put a boom made out of plastic sewer pipe out there. It's all going to collect against the boom and problem solved. This is a fantasy. And we live in a world where fantasy is reality. Our president lives in a fantasy world, and he's made it reality. So we have to combat that with the truth. And when we say unite behind the science, we mean that both for carbon pollution and plastic pollution.
Absolutely. So I want to talk about the source of this plastic, the oil, and all the drilling that we do here in Long Beach and Signal Hill. I often get presented with this question, well, is it even possible to stop drilling? And of course I believe that it's possible and that it's necessary. What would you say to these skeptics out here? Many people, you know, who have economic interest invested in oil. Do you support the stance that they should divest their economic interest and immediately begin the transition off of fossil fuel?
I believe that's the policy of the state of California. We were going to be fossil fuel free by the mid-century, and the only way to do that is to divest, to get out of the business. And for those that worry about the economic consequences, I mean, we have iconic businesses going broke all the time. Look at Sears and Roebuck. You know, retail has been totally destroyed by Amazon. So what's totally destroying the plastic industry and the petroleum industry is carbon pollution. Carbon pollution both in the gaseous form, which is carbon dioxide, and in the solid form, which is plastic.
Absolutely.
And we we can't fight the economic system by ourselves. We need politicians to be part of the solution. It's got, in a very real sense, only politics can save us. We've got to have that political revolution in order to have the economic revolution. Because the economics runs on autopilot. The economics, whatever you can think up in Shark Tank that somebody's going to throw money at, it's going to go out there and become a real product. This is irrational, but it's the way we manage our resources. We have to have management of resources that follows a rational pathway. We can only do that through political revolution. Then the economic revolution will be forced to follow.
Absolutely. So, how do you feel about Bernie and all of everything that he's talking about with the political revolution? Are you a supporter?
Absolutely. Having been a socialist since the 1960s, I was always afraid to say the word. It just was something I couldn't use as an option, because they could point to the Soviet Union and the repression there. They could point to Cuba and the repression that was perceived to be there, but mostly as a result of the blockade, and make socialism a dirty word. What Bernie's done is to rescue socialism from the dust heap of history and bring it back into focus as the next stage of history. Because truly history works in stages. It's not static. Regimes come and go, systems come and go, economies come and go, and we are now demonstrating that capitalism has peaked in so many ways. We're seeing the end of capitalism's rise and the beginning of socialist thinking. And I'm so glad to see that Bernie is the one that has made socialism a common, everyday word that now just has pushback from major corporate mouthpieces, but not from the people.
Absolutely. You know, Captain Moore, I'm glad that you're talking about the movements that you grew up in, that inspired you, the civil rights movements, the anti-war movement. You've seen a lot of these changes take place, and you've also seen a lot of setbacks in many ways. What would you say for people of my generation or younger who are also looking to be part of a radical transformation, whether it's a socialist revolution or an ecological transformation? Is there any advice?
They're both interrelated, and the most powerful testimony is the voice of youth, because youth will inherit the future. And if they see clearly that their future is tainted by the capitalist monster, they will clearly see the alternative is one in which cooperation replaces competition. We're trained from infancy to be competitive. We want to be the best in the football team. We want to be the best on the track team. I competed in all those things. I was considered the best athlete, or tied for best athlete in junior high school. I ran all city 440. Competition just comes automatically to us under capitalism. But truly, it's cooperation that will save us, not competition. We've got to get everybody on the same page. Why? Because all this can't happen in one country. It's got to happen worldwide. And the only way it can happen worldwide is through a new kind of cooperation that is made possible by social media, but also disrupted by social media. So we have to be aware of the problems and communicating with our brothers and sisters around the world, but we also have to do it. We have to make it real. We have to gain that critical mass and move forward as a mass of people. And our client is no longer just the poor. Our client is now nature herself. Nature herself is acting. Whether you believe in Gaia, whether you believe nature has a soul, it's acting as if it were a person that's pissed. It's acting as if you've beat me up so long, I can't take it anymore. I've had it, and I'm throwing down this gauntlet of storms, droughts, you name it, that is going to make you wake up. So what's happening is we've got a movement not just for those wretched of the earth who are truly being treated with worse torture than the Middle Ages, but nature herself is now the client. So as we rescue nature, we will rescue the tortured masses of people that are being exploited by capitalism.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I just got to say, Captain Moore, I think that it's possible and it's necessary for us to be on the side of Mother Earth. I believe that we're going to win this. I refuse to give up hope, and
we'll be crushed by Mother Earth and natural forces if we don't radically change. Absolutely. We're being crushed now.
Absolutely.
We're killing thousands and thousands every year with unheard of ferocity of natural forces. The End of the Long Summer is a book by Dumanowski that points out the fact that we had this really long, calm period of development for capitalism in which it could make these radical, supernatural advances in technology and control nature to an unprecedented degree. But that long summer of kind of calm natural forces is over. Now we're in the age of violence in the natural world. And that violence can only be stemmed not by armies of soldiers, but by armies of people taking to the streets and demanding a political revolution.
Absolutely, absolutely, and that's exactly why I'm campaigning. I think it's
all right.
important.
Thank you for doing that.
Appreciate it. I appreciate it, and I appreciate your support. I appreciate your endorsement. I appreciate all the work that you've done for our community, bringing awareness to this issue. I wanted to just really take a quick second to if you could just explain this for people who may be watching this. What is this exactly that I'm holding here? You actually collected this, correct?
Yeah, we went out this year to take the Korean broadcasting system. They did a really bang-up documentary. It's the first national broadcasting system like our PBS that actually got on the boat, came with me, and saw for their own selves what was out there, and they did a great documentary. I have it in English subtitles. I'm happy to share it with you. But the reason why they wanted to go is because they'd heard about this plastic soup, this place where plastic has completely invaded the entire biome, the biosphere in the ocean. And this is an example of what happens when you take a net a meter wide by 20 centimeters deep and trawl it across the surface of the ocean for about a half an hour. You're going to get a sample just of all the detritus of civilization. The plastic that has decomposed and not gone away. Because plastic never truly goes away. It just breaks into smaller and smaller pieces, and it will take an unknown amount of time for it to become part of the natural world again. In ecology, we say nothing is wasted. In ecological systems, everything is used. We've invented a material, plastic, that dictum no longer applies. It's invaded every niche in the biosphere, and it has no possible value to be integrated by natural forces. So that's a new thing in history. That defines the plastic age, and that's the age we live in. We live in the age of climate change and the age of plastic. Those two characteristics of the modern age have not been dealt with in any adequate way and can only be dealt with through a radical political change, which I hope to support you as being the spearhead of, because it will take conscious young people to do it.
Thank you so much, Captain Moore. Any advice you have as I begin this journey in politics, or I guess I've begun it for a while?
Well, it's the same as the journey in the nonprofit world. You know, when we tried to get grants for our study of plastic, it was a non-starter. We didn't have feel-good things like starting a baseball league for underprivileged youth, or a food bank for people that didn't have enough food. We were studying this new phenomenon, this invasion of the biosphere by synthetic polymers. And we came to realize that you didn't get that grant the first year. You probably weren't going to get that grant the second year. But the third year, you tried over and over again, and finally, that constant pressure constantly applied, the fact that there's a new problem we have to deal with, that starts to have resonance. So you can't fail. Your only failure would be not to run again. So this is the start of your political career. You've advanced greatly over time. Don't give up.
Thank you, Captain Moore, and I appreciate your years of experience, you having the stamina to not give up. You know, I'm sure there's a lot of discouraging moments
Absolutely.
throughout the whole time, and I appreciate you, you know, being a leader in the environmental movement, and it's a global movement. So I just
Absolutely.
appreciate the work that you've done, and thank you for your endorsement. It means a lot to me.
Thank you. All right, good luck.
Thank you.